The situation is relatively calm now, except a very few people who are still traumatized by what happened yesterday. I would say everything has returned to normalcy. You know that the issue was discussed on various platforms yesterday, both radio and on TV. So the situation is calm now and everybody's going about his or her duties.
The atmosphere at Ashaiman Taifa, as narrated by a resident, is in a sharp contrast to the brutal scenes yesterday, where military helicopters, armored vehicles, and scores of armed soldiers were filmed brutalizing citizens in search of killers of 22-year-old trooper Sheriff Imoro. Life is returning to normalcy in Ashaiman Taifa, but the trauma residents suffered remains, just as is the pains of the family of the deceased. The Ghana Armed Forces, in a statement signed by Brigadier General Agrikwashi, justify the brutal attacks on the residents, many of whom say they were only hearing of the killing of the soldier for the first time. While admitting the operation was sanctioned by the military high command, the statement says the operation was not to avenge the killing of the soldier, but to fish out perpetrators of the killing of Trooper Sheriff Imoro. It says 184 suspects between ages 21 and 47 years old have been picked up by the military and handed over to the military police. They are to be sent to the police later for action. The Ghana Armed Forces indicates that the operation was an intelligence-led one. It describes the brutalization of innocent citizens as regrettable. But for the executive director of the African Center for Security and Counterterrorism, the operation was unprofessional. It is also calling on the president to fire the Deputy Defense Minister, Kofi Amankwa Menu. He tells Citi News why.
The Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces is the sitting president of our republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. But sorry to say, my brother, that a whole Deputy Minister of Defense have come out to say that they are not sorry over what has happened. Are we turning our democracy upside down? Power resides in the people. Who gives the president the power or the authority is wielding as the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces? Is it not the people? So if the Commander-in-Chief really means well to the good people of this country, the Deputy Minister of Defense should be fired.
The Ghana police is yet to comment on the development.
The actions by the military have been condemned by many, including the former president of the Republic, that is John Dramani Mahama, who has extended his condolences to the family of the murdered military officer at Ashaiman, Sheriff Imoro, and the Ghana Armed Forces. In the statement, he stated that, "I am deeply saddened by the death of one of our soldiers at a young age in Ashaiman. Lorina and I extend our deepest condolences to the bereaved and grieving family, the officers and the men of the Ghana Armed Forces." And the statement further went on to call on government to step in and address the situation between Ashaiman residents and the Ghana Armed Forces, and thus called for compensation for all persons affected. You were also asking that at least the President Akufo-Addo, should have said a word or two.
He should have apologized. He should have apologized as Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces to the residents of Ashaiman. I mean, can you imagine that you wake up one morning, you are going to visit a friend, and if you've been rounded up because you're in Ashaiman? I mean, it doesn't add up. For me, I've been saying that if you followed recent security happenings in our country, you wouldn't be too surprised with what we saw in Ashaiman. For me, in the past, happenings like what happened in the Jura, Techiman South Coalition Center, and Parliament on the night of the election of the Speaker of Parliament sort of have became the permission structure for what we saw in Ashaiman. I mean, we didn't condemn it that much. People did at the time, but we didn't appreciate the seriousness of the issue. And for me, I was in Parliament on the night of the swearing-in of the Speaker of Parliament. And if you saw the way soldiers with guns entered into the chamber trying to resist the minority or the NDC caucus at the time, all of that mental picture, really, if you take your mind back to it, you wouldn't be too surprised with what's happening in Ashaiman. If it happened in an institution like Parliament, they can only imagine what would have happened in Ashaiman. And we saw the videos. It's unfortunate. We should condemn it in very certain terms. We shouldn't be seen to be condoning some of these things because of the fact that it reminds us of a very dark past in this country's history where we've all resolved as a people not to go back to again. We have the rule of law. We should stick to it. In matters like this, you expect the police to be up and doing and not the military trying to take the law into their own hands.
Well, the police is here to comment about it, but a group that calls itself Ashaiman Life Matters, they are also demanding that compensation should be given to the victims. But also updates on this particular story indicates that 150 Ashaiman residents picked up by the military, they have been released. Before that, the member of parliament for the area, NX Nokbe, he noted that as to the whereabouts of these residents was nowhere, but it looks like they're being released. And all what the issue has been about is for government to wade into the issue and address it.
So what was the point in the first place? And like I'm saying to you, somebody probably went to visit their girlfriend in Ashaiman, and by the next minute he was rounded up because he was believed to be a criminal. We don't want some of these things happening in a democracy. So government, the military should go back to the drawing board and make sure that some of these things don't repeat itself again. And of course, it's important that we condemn the killing of the military officer. That was gruesome, and that shouldn't be condoned or entertained in any form.
But the good news is calm has returned to Ashaiman. So businesses, students, and everyone is going about his or her day-to-day activities. This is still CNI Extra here